Hello, this is Chris with Belcher Consulting and belcherconsulting.com. Today we're going to talk about how to make a pivot table. So let's go to some sample data. If you've been watching my videos, this is the same data we've been working with for a couple of our other projects and videos. But it's just some sample data I copied off the internet, and it's broken down by these columns here. There's an order date, a sales region, sales rep, a sales item, the item for sale, how many units of that particular item, and then a unit cost, and then a total, which is the units times the unit cost. So real simple data set here that we're working with. And we're going to make a pivot table out of it. And what pivot tables allow us to do is summarize and filter this data and look at it in a way that would take a long time if we were trying to write formulas for averaging and summing and all this kind of stuff. And so it's gonna allow us to filter this data based off the column headers, and I'll show you what that means in a second. But the important thing to know is when you're creating a pivot table that your data has to be in this table form, meaning each column has a clear header on it, and then each row is a related entity, item, or entry. So this whole row has to do with itself, with one sort of particular thing. In this case, it's one sales entry on the 18th in the central region. Rep Andrews sold 75 pencils at $1.99 for a total of $149.25. So your data has to be organized this way to create a pivot table. And in our case, just a small little table. So we're going to create a pivot table because we want to break this information down a little bit and study this data a little bit. So when your data is in table form already, all you have to do is go up here and just hit into insert. So go back, went through that a little fast, go up to insert, and in Office 365, which is what I'm using, is a pivot table, but it should be there for you under, if your version of Excel looks a little different than mine. But under insert, pivot table, and you can see right here, there's the first question asks, what's the data that you're using? And if you've selected hit pivot table while you're in your table, Excel kind of instinctively knows that's the data that you want to use, and you can see it's put the green border around my data here, so that's correct. That's the table I want to use. And then the second question is, where do I want to put this pivot table? New worksheet or existing worksheet. New worksheet would bring up a tab, just a new tab here with the pivot table on it. But since the table that we're working with isn't all that big, we're just going to put it in the same sheet as the other one. So you can see here, it's here's the pivot table. It's blank right now. There's no information in it. The way we're going to put information in it is through what they call the field list. And the field list has these 4 boxes right here, and how this will determine how our information is going to be displayed. But the choices we get here, you can see these check mark boxes are our field headers. So that's basically how the information is going to be broken down into the pivot table. And we can have the information displayed vertically or horizontally. We can average these values. We can filter out different pieces of information here, and I'll just show you by getting into it. So first thing I want to know is I want to know my regions. I want to total everything by region. So the first thing I'm going to drag this down here is to rows. And what this particular box is telling me is I want everything organized along the rows. If I put it up here where it says columns, it's going to organize by columns. So you can see this is the same information, just displayed horizontally instead of vertically. I'm just choosing to look at it vertically in this instance. So as you can see, I'm just going to center everything just to kind of make it look good. These are the regions inside my data set. There's 4 of them right here. And then I want to know, just a basic number, what my grand total. So my total It's the same as the total column out here, what my total is. I'm going to put that right here, and this is going to give me my values. You can see as it says right here above the box values, and I'll be able to see those values in a couple different ways, averages, standard deviations. But right now I just want to sum. As you can see, I'm summing all of the values in my total column based off my region. So central is 10,000, east is 6,000, north is 449, west is 2,486. So that's a basic pivot table, is how it's breaking down the information based on these columns. But we can do a few different things. We can break it down even more than that, or we can change the criteria. So let's say I wanted to change, not view it by region, drag that out of there or unclick it, but I wanted to change it by rep. Well, now that's information in the pivot table is just changed from the item to the rep. Or maybe I want to do both. Maybe I want to see how much that particular rep has sold in each item. So you can see I dragged it down. It's giving me some drop-down menus. I'm going to change it back to left justified. But you can see this particular sales person sold this much of this particular item, and it's going to give me a grand total. I can swap those back and forth. I can start throwing things like region in here, northeast, southwest, all done right here. So you can play with this information just by dragging up and down, unclicking, starting all over. Maybe you want to filter it by date. In this particular case, Excel can do some pretty instinctive stuff. So let's say I want to filter it by date. You can see Excel is going to put it in organized information for me, quarters, months. Again, maybe I want to go to the total again. I can see what I sold in those particular quarter, or I want to add a sales rep to it. But that's basically how you make pivot tables. We'll start over here, take that off. Just go back to something that makes a little sense. So we're gonna do by region across the top. And I want to see what my, sorry, 2 seconds here, doing two things at once. I want to see what the item is across my regions, and I'm going to go to total. You can see that. Right now it's not in dollar form, but that's what those numbers represent. All I have to do is change it to dollar form if I want to. Or back to numbers. But you can see right here, it's going to be broken down by sales territory, grand totals. And there's a lot of options that we can change the view of these pivot tables and change the information, grand totals and stuff. But that's a basic way to get a pivot table. And then from there, once it's in pivot table form, you'll see this little darkened box up here that says pivot table tools. And you might have a different version of Excel, but there's a way to get there. And then we can start doing some graphing. It's going to give us some recommended graphics here, but we can start inserting some graphs, and the graphs will be based upon the information in the pivot table. So as we take information out, we may want to do again, we want to figure out what our reps are selling. And by total, and there we go. And then we can add in by region. That's going to break it down by region for us. Well, that's actually not what I want to do. There we go. Region. So you can see along here in our graph, it's broken down by region, by sales associate, by total. So that's a pivot table. Fairly straightforward. Again, this box up here is just kind of an overall filter. Let's say I wanted to filter it out by region and only show my region, and I would do one particular region instead of all. I could select multiple, couple, so I don't want to use, maybe I just want to use the east, and I'll switch my graph to east, or maybe I just north and east, and all the sales associates. So like that, I can filter all that data through the pivot table as well. So really useful tool in breaking down large data sets. You can do a lot of stuff with it. I've just given you a real basic overview of what pivot tables are, but if you have any questions, you can contact me. BelcherConsulting.com, BelcherCP@gmail is my email address, and my phone number is 406-272-6377. Thanks for watching.